All right. Thanks, everyone, for making it. I know it's a different time for everyone in the world. Some of you guys haven't slept. Some of you guys woke up really early, so appreciate you being here. I'm going to really quickly introduce everyone and then just let you guys share your insights. So, firstly, we have Michael Uhlig, currently in Spain. Previously, Michael ran Baru Black Mountain Farm in Panama, which I visited and I was very impressed with what they're doing there. Then he moved to Spain and founded the Origin Coffee Roasters in 2012. So it's great that you have the perspective of the producer and now the consumer for the past decade almost. The Origin is one of Spain's first specialty coffee micro roasters, and they've won awards for Spain's best espresso, and they've won barista championships. So it's great to have you. You'll give us a great insight into the pulse of the consumer markets in Europe. We also have Marty Pollack. He's been working in China in coffee since 2008. Hey, Marty. I've had the pleasure of working with you on grading some coffee, and I've seen you in action, so I know you're the wizard. He's the managing partner of Torch Coffee in China. They're a wholesale roastery, cafe, and a training lab in Yunnan, China. He's a Q grader instructor, so he's trained a lot of people in the industry. He's an educator and a leader, and he does that throughout Asia and the Middle East. So again, really excited to have your perspective on Asia and Middle East. Next, we got Rodrigo. Um, he's got over 10 years of specialty coffee experience in the industry on, again, both the production side at Origin with Devoción Colombia, as well on the marketing side with Devoción USA. He also looks after some of the sister brands of Devoción like Cafe Veneto. So again, it's really great to have that dual perspective that you can provide today. Thanks, Rodrigo. Um, Cole is from Toronto, from Calgary in Canada. So he's my neighbor. Wave at you out the window. Um, he's been in specialty coffee for 10 years. And right now he's the director of coffee at Rosso Coffee Roasters, as well as their newly formed sister company, Forward Specialty Green Coffee Importers. He's also the 2018 and 2019 Canadian National Barista Champion. Go Cole. He also represented Canada on the world stage and was in the top 5 both times. So thanks for being here, Cole. Last but not least, we have Blake. Blake is here from Australia. It's 4 a.m. in the morning, so hats off to you for joining us. Blake's got over 18 years in specialty coffee and hospitality. Right now, he heads up St. Ali in New South Wales, Australia, and previously he's held many roles in the industry, including owning and operating his own roastery and cafe in Sydney's Circular Quay. So with that, thank you everyone for being here, and let's dive into the questions. So obviously, we've heard from the consumers on the challenges they've faced. Now we want to hear on the, consuming side. So let's get started with Michael. What are the challenges that have been brought on by COVID-19?
Hi, everyone. So do you hear me well?
Loud and clear.
Yeah, great. So hi, everyone. Saludos a Kielito as well. Saludos a Panamá, aquí desde España. Spain is a tourist country, right? So especially also where we live right on the Mediterranean Sea. Roast our coffee about in a straight line about 200 meters away from the sea. We're in a tourist area, and that's completely stalled, completely died down, of course, due to COVID-19. We also live in an area, actually, in fact, our town is the largest Scandinavian community outside of Scandinavia. So we have a lot of Norwegians usually here living, usually during the winter season in Scandinavia. And many of them have gone back. Hotels have shut down, and the whole gastro sector has shut down. So in our case, we have 3 coffee shops. plus the roastery. So of course, we from one day to the next had to shut down our coffee shops. Um, our people had to stay at home. Our customers, of course, shut down their coffee shops, so our roastery customers as well. So it was quite a scene the first day. I was quite shocked, and kind of well, had to kind of go with the flow. Didn't really know what to expect, where it all was going to go. Um, but that kind of was the initial situation. Now we're into Spain has created different phases, I think, similar to other countries, where in these different phases you can start to open up companies, businesses, parks start opening up again. In our case, we just 2 weeks ago entered in phase one, which meant we could open our terraces again at 50% of seating availability on the terraces. And okay, it's been going all right. Our coffee shops are doing well. Customers are coming back. And I mean, people have been 2 months at home. You can't blame them. They're wanting to go out on the streets again. Spanish culture anyway is a very lively culture, a very gastro-oriented culture, and we kind of count on that, right? And the next step will be to see what happens with the tourism. That of course this year will probably come back very slowly. We've been hearing France, Italy, Spain, and Portugal want to create a certain agreement to enhance tourism between these countries. But it definitely has been a shocker. We have been at about 10% for 2 months, at about 10% of our usual turnover, and about 90% of our personnel staying at home. So that was the situation, I guess, pretty much similar to all over the world.
Yeah, no, it's really terrible to hear. I mean, you're right, smack in the middle of tourist central in Barcelona, right? So no travel means no customers. So that's sad to hear, but at least, things are easing up. I think,
Hmm.
uh, you know, I, I think, as things slowly ease up and, hopefully the numbers decline, um, you know, business picks up and, we're going to go into the solutions and innovations because everyone here has been innovating and we'll get to that shortly. So thanks for that, Michael. Next, can we move on to Marty? I don't know if Marty's.
Yeah. Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Hey. So yeah,
Great.
tell us about China.
So
Everyone's
yeah,
going to
so
be wanting to hear from
China,
you.
we started a little before all of you, and I was actually in the airport flying to Kuwait when I got a message from a guy coming from India saying that the embassy rejected his visa because he said there was some health issues. So we were pretty surprised. We didn't know anything was happening because China's huge and Wuhan is really far away from us. But the week later, when I came back, everything was closed, and China doesn't play around. They closed absolutely everything. Our roastery is about a 15-minute drive from our cafe, and the road was blocked. We couldn't get there. And all restaurants were closed. We tried to open anyway because we thought, this isn't a big deal. It's far away from us. But within 20 minutes, the health department was there and closed our cafe and put signs on all the restaurants in town. And we're in a small village in a producing area or small town that said, if anybody sees anyone dining in, call this number and report them. Everything was completely closed. In many cities, only one representative from a household could go out every 2 days just to buy needed supplies. But the only place you could go is grocery stores because everything else was closed. And so that really allowed China to move through the pandemic very, very quickly because there was such a firm response. And so our cafe was decimated during February and March, and roastery was the same because all of our cafe clients were closed, and as well our education because no one could travel. And so a lot of people during that time started talking about going online, doing online education, online this and that, and making some fundamental changes to their business platform. But we didn't. We got together as a team and said, let's see, we don't think this will last forever. And rather than trying to diversify into something that we don't have any real competency in, let's just kind of reinforce systems that we have now and do some internal training and wait and see how long this takes. And for us, we were fortunate in that really within 2 months, things were back to a relative normal. And now it's totally back to normal. I'm actually traveling outside of our city right now, and in a hotel, and probably 20% of people are wearing masks, but everything else is open. I was at 2 cafes today, and busy and active, and things have basically returned back to normal in a pretty short time. So yeah, the scariness was not knowing if this day would come, and wondering if we'd make it through. But now that we're on the other side of it, it seems, that the trajectory is going to continue in the right direction.
Yeah, no, I remember meeting you. I think it was end of Jan, early Feb, and you were
it was like
Dubai
a day
on
before
your
I
way
went
to
back.
China. Yeah, and that's when
Yeah.
coronavirus was starting to hit the headlines, and we were just like, we don't know what's happening. And even I wasn't home, so I was supposed to fly back, and everything was just a mess. So, yeah, no, I guess you guys have been really strict on your end in terms of lockdowns in China, and it seems like you guys came out of it pretty fast. So, thanks for sharing your story. Rodrigo, can we
How you
hear
doing?
from you? What are the challenges? I know you're going to have a slightly different angle because you're still in Colombia, even though Devoción has presence in the U.S. as well. So please share with us, what are the challenges?
Sure. I guess I have 3 different angles to share from briefly. There's the two sales marketing sides, one in U.S., one in Colombia. And then there's one, I have close contact with farmers, so I kind of feel like it's sometimes necessary to give a little bit of their point of view as well. In terms of New York, obviously, we have 4 shops there, 2 in Brooklyn and 2 in Manhattan. Obviously, New York got decimated. At one point, it was the world leader in cases of corona and deaths, and it hit us super hard. That's something that foot traffic in New York is something that, unless your e-commerce has been going for years and you've just invested super heavily into it, you're not going to be able to make up that ground that you lost with the loss of foot traffic. So that the loss of retail hit really hard in New York. Obviously, e-commerce went up. In Colombia, we don't have a physical coffee shop here at this point. We do have a lot of wholesale clients. So our business model here is mostly wholesale. Credit to the Colombian government and the government and the mayor here in Bogota for shutting down rapidly, for having, among the Latin American countries, it's one of the best responses to the virus. We've been on quarantine for months now. And, this quarantine started when there was a couple hundred cases in the country. So obviously the problem with that is no foot traffic, sales decreasing catastrophically for us. E-commerce, which is a problem in and of itself in Colombia because it's the country in Latin America that is most averse to using their credit card online. E-commerce is not a great realm to try and be in pre-COVID, but COVID has changed those patterns a lot. We've experienced 15 times the amount of sales this month we hit 15 times what we were doing at the beginning of the year. So that's still not even going to scratch what the loss of wholesale sales were that took place. But later I'll probably go into a little bit more detail about that. But yeah, it's definitely a transitional period for Colombia to more of an e-commerce model. And as far as farms, I've spoken to a few farmers, like 4 farmers since, who are friends of mine since since the pandemic started. And, their problems vary from region to region. Someone who's in Risaralda has different issues than someone who's in Huila or Cundinamarca as a producer. But depending on mayoral responses, there's places where nobody can enter the towns. There's places where you have to have special permits to enter and leave. It's been really hard to collect coffee. It's been, they've had to have family members help out with that side of the process. The good thing, as I believe Carl was saying earlier, is there is a price floor the FNC sets that, they have to buy the coffee from the farmer. So that hit hasn't been felt as much as the demand has fallen. But they, if this goes on much longer, they will see more consequences on that end. And as it stands, the FNC based price a lot of times doesn't even cover costs for a lot of farmers. So some people put the estimate of what you have to sell a carga de café, which is 125 kilos, for at 1.5 million pesos, and that's usually far above what the FNC based price is. So those are institutional problems, and COVID has just exacerbated them.
It's interesting to see how the impact on New York is then forced internal operations in Colombia to ramp up and maybe adopt more e-commerce, and maybe this is kind of like a shot in the arm that Colombia needed in its emerging coffee consuming market.
Exactly.
So some good insights. Thanks, Rodrigo. Next, come to my countryman, Cole. How are you doing? And tell us, what are the challenges that have been brought on?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Abbas. So to give some background, I'm based in Calgary, so Western Canada. We're a city of about 1.3 million people. I have 2 companies that I run. One is Rosso Coffee Roasters. We're a wholesale and retail operating roastery. We have 7 cafes in the city. 4 of them have been able to maintain operations throughout COVID. Just doing takeaway service and very, very high protocols in terms of cleaning and procedures and the safety glass and the masks and gloves, all that sort of stuff. And we've seen maybe 15% of our normal sales through those 4 cafes. 3 of the 3 that are closed are potentially never going to reopen. They have been a very different circumstance, very challenging. One's in a convention center that's now an overflow homeless shelter, and 2 are just, one's in a museum, one's in a not very busy location to begin with. Our wholesale business has essentially disappeared. We lost 95% revenue in wholesale essentially overnight. But similar to what Rodrigo just said, our online sales have skyrocketed. In a weird way, I think this is going to be a renaissance period for specialty coffee if we can play our cards right. What we've done here is try to see light in the darkness. We have tried to engage and connect with every single client that has ordered online. Hey, can I help you with brewing recipes? Hey, can I tell you more about this coffee? Hey, can I talk to you about anything? Engage with me. I'm sitting here. I'm on my laptop. I'm not going anywhere. I'd really like to help. And we've seen a huge amount of retention in online orders and secondary, 3rd, 4th, 5th orders. We've used this as a time to create allies. We have a local marketplace that we've put online with friends from other businesses and local vendors here in Calgary. So trying to support one another, because I think it's really, above all else, it's a time to show up for one another and provide that support.
Yeah, thanks, Cole. Yeah, I think in Canada, we're fortunate. E-commerce is pretty well established and adopted. So, we're fortunate that we had those channels and those consumer behaviors in place. People, putting a credit card in a computer is like not an issue anymore. So it's good you've taken advantage of that, and I've been following your content, so you guys are doing a great job for sure.
Sweet, thanks.
So Blake, tell me how things are down under. How's the situation there?
Morning, guys. We had a really pretty unique situation because we were actually gearing up for mice and also the World Barista Champs that were coming in May. So we were going full steam with that. We're one of the premier partners for that, so we're putting a lot of focus on that, and that's now gone. But in terms of what happened with our consumers, we were quite a large specialty wholesale coffee roaster. We supply some of the a kind of like franchise groups as well who specialize in specialty coffee in some of our large format shopping malls. So their operation completely shut down. And a lot of the cafes did too, because what we did here was lockdown was pretty quick. And the only thing that could really operate was suburban cafe partners. And also our kind of HQ mothership in South Melbourne, that completely shut down. So it was really confusing on the weekend. There was a lot of mixed messagings from the government. And then on the Monday, there were new measures put in place where you could go out, get takeaway coffee, get your essentials. So that kind of saved our bacon a little bit. And we actually saw an uptake in volume in suburban cafes because that was the only place you could go to. People couldn't go to the pub, people could go to a restaurant, you couldn't dine in. And everyone was working from home as well. And again, like all the other guys have said, our online sales skyrocketed with homebrew kits across all platforms of roast as well, filter espresso, our apparel as well went through the roof, mugs, those kind of things. But we still had to lay off probably it was looking like we were going to have to lay off probably about 85% of our staff, particularly in the roastery. So as we say in Australia, it's looking like a shit sandwich pretty much. But then Salvatore Malatesta, who's our CEO and kind of spiritual leader, he has a lot of amazing connections here in Australia, and he connected with some guys called Hydrocam, and we actually started producing sanitizer in our roastery. So we did a complete flip of our roastery, or maybe we're using one of our Probat roasters just to get enough through of our single origins. And of course, our single origin program was pretty good. It rotates about every 6 to 8 weeks. That was completely kind of locked down. We just sold out of what stock we had. And then we had another roaster just doing our house blends. And then we got our guys, be them baristas, packaging guys, accounts people who would be on the phone, started bottling sanitizer. So it kind of looked like a scene from Breaking Bad. And that was just amazing. Like the turnaround we made, it was to WHO standards, about 70 to 80% ethanol. So the environment in the roastery changed from being a pretty, kind of safe work environment to now we have ethanol around. And we started selling sanitizer because in Australia, us being on an island and so dependent on products from China, we had to go back and do some Australian ingenuity, and we sold a lot of sanitizer. I'm not sure about the massive volumes. Like people would be driving around all day just trying to find sanitizer, wipes and masks and chemists. So through our online channel, that went really well. We were having some slight issues with freight because it's a flammable product. So freight charges were high, more packaging. But yeah, that basically saved our butts. And we're still producing now. And now that's also led to us doing a special kind of program where if you buy a certain amount of sanitizer, we'll donate the equivalent cases to any charity of your choice. So in particular, we're thinking about now, we have sanitizer in stock throughout the country, so the hospitals are going pretty well, but now it's about the charities. So like Vinnie's, Red Cross Australia, all those kind of guys to help more people who in need who don't actually have access or funding to be able to purchase the sanitizer. So from there, now we're getting a lot of the cafes reopening. So we're starting to ramp up and going back to roasting coffee and getting out and seeing our customers and helping them with, they have debts to us, but we're not going to go around and knock on their doors asking for money. We actually just help them out. And if they're reopening, we replace this stock that they had pre-COVID that now, wouldn't taste very good. And we replenish their stock and get them up and going again.
Yeah, thanks. It sounds like you guys have innovated and, really looked outside the box. I've heard of, a few companies producing sanitizer and, even like face masks and just kind of completely changing their business model. So hats off that you're able to do that. I heard some common themes, like it seems like in Spain and in Australia, things are slowly, easing up, starting to open. In China, they're a bit ahead of Europe. In Australia as well. E-commerce is a trend. You guys are switching to the digital channels and taking advantage of, the more time that's being spent and, just not being able to go into a cafe and buy something. So it's good to hear that. Are there any other kind of ways that these challenges are being met? And I'll just kind of pose as an open question. Is there any other way that you guys are trying to change your business models or innovating in any other way in addition to what has already been shared? I'll make this an open question to anyone.
Well, as far as what's going on over here, Colombia obviously has a very unique, commerce. In that in that it's averse to any sort of using your credit card online. So what we've had to do is put aside a much larger share of our budget into e-commerce, into ads, paying more direct attention to consumer habits, more attention to better targeting, putting a lot more money onto exactly who our audience is, and not just necessarily running ads to run ads. Knowing which metrics are really important to us, because there's a lot of different KPIs that you can use. I would say customer acquisition cost for us has been huge. Like seeing how much money we in this is U.S. Colombia. This is something we pay attention to a lot, and a lot of other companies down here have been paying attention to. We have a specific problem too, which is this is a coffee producing country. Everybody's got an uncle or a family member, or a friend who has a coffee farm, essentially. So people think, who knows more about coffee than us? And there's been a little bit of a pushback sometimes when we try to use kind of third wave language or brewing techniques or methods. It's sort of like, wait, why somebody from outside kind of like telling me that about coffee? And there's points on both sides, because Colombians, obviously there's a lot of stuff Colombians know about coffee that maybe people in non-producing countries don't know, and that's huge. But it's important here to have education be a part of your sales approach to the audience. Innovative when it comes to branding, not just doing what everybody else does, using different color schemes, using different language, being agile, using a lot of influencers, micro-influencers, I guess it's normal everywhere, using platforms like Rappi, Amazon, Mercado Libre. There's there's probably more in the end, but like wholesale clients that aren't open on Rappi, seeing how you can get new products to them and how they can sell it and get your sales up. Direct sales through WhatsApp, which is huge here. This is kind of something that's popped up since COVID, is WhatsApp flyers with how to buy and transfer money directly through a bank, Bancolombia or whichever bank. And that's a little bit of innovation that's taking place. And I mean, as far as the farmers, they still have the exact same problems. They need more training, they need more equipment. They need, if they get equipment, it needs to be super helpful for them. You see a lot of abandoned labs all across the country. There needs to be more stability and security. You know, there's a lot of conflict action taking place during COVID, and a lot of assassination of environmental leaders, which has been disappointing. Huge uptick in that this year. And you know, one thing that we like to do is, you know, we travel to almost every farm that we buy coffee from, especially if it's a limited edition, and we brew a lot of times, as much as possible, the farmer's final product on the farm for them, using a V60 or some sort of method that we deem that's good, and using our brew standards. And a lot of farmers tell us, not only, you know, in some cases it's the first time anyone's ever visited my farm, a private buyer, that, you know, but also this is the first time I've tried my coffee. This is the first time I've seen a bag of my own coffee. And, you know, there's higher level producers that know exactly what's going on, and they're not part of necessarily this discussion I'm having now. They're very well stocked, and know they have roasters and labs on the farm. But for the more humble farmers, you know, they say, like, wow, this is crazy. This tastes different than what I think coffee tastes like. I think it's kind of like,
yeah, no, it's you know, I've noticed that you guys have tried so many different things, just through like your content and just the way you're communicating, and like WhatsApp, for example. That's incredible. And it's like, I guess it's all about experimenting with these new channels and approaches for sales, marketing, and see what sticks, right? Because there's also a lot of people you're competing against. Like, everyone's going online, everyone's trying to use these channels. So how can you really separate from the next roaster down the road? So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and a big
Anyone
one for
else
us,
yeah,
in Australia, was that we had to totally change our kind of cafe models as well to be more of like the kind of neighborhood store. And a lot of the restaurants and cafes were doing that, where they'd do specialty kind of take-home packs, your COVID packs, where they'd get the chefs still employed to make all these amazing meals that you could only usually get in the cafe. Like some of our signature dishes out of our South Melbourne cafe, you could get at the general store, as well as coffee. So we moved our KB90 from the back of the cafe right up to the front of the garage door. You could drive through. You didn't even have to get out of your car. And then all our wholesale customers, or if you bought a certain purchase online, you get a little bottle of sanitizer. We call it a pocket rocket because it fits in your pocket. And they were basically the kind of things that we did. And yeah, like Rodrigo said, just pumping on Instagram. It's huge here in Australia. WhatsApp slowly starting to come through, and just getting it out that way. And a lot of it too, we actually picked up a few wholesale customers as well during this time, because their volumes are increasing, but then they weren't getting support from their roasting partner, whereas we could come in and support. Like, it was kind of bad, like picking up accounts during such a world global pandemic, but in the end, it's helping them to improve their business even more, so they could actually survive.
Yeah, I like the whole, like, hey, provide a meal and recreate that sort of experience in your home, right? As a consumer, you can't go and get your favorite sandwich and the coffee that you're used to getting, and, you know,
Yeah,
here's the
100%.
ingredients, or here's even a, you know, prepared food.
And also here too, in Australia, we didn't have any government support in terms of payouts for overseas workers, which makes up, you know, like 80% of our hospitality industry here. And also casual workers as well. And we all know that in hospitality, it's a very casual employee environment, travelers, those kind of things. And those guys were basically left here, locked here in Australia. Wow. They couldn't travel. So a lot of the hospitality businesses and ourselves put our minds together, and we're helping out with charities. And it was like Feed a Mate kind of charity, where you could actually provide a meal for them, because they didn't have any money coming in or any government support.
Yeah, so we've actually been fortunate here in Canada. It's sad to hear that. In Canada, the government's been helping a lot of subsidies, a lot of programs. We're really fortunate here. In every country is completely different. Any other innovations, any other solutions anyone wants to share? We've heard from a couple of from Blake and also from Rodrigo. Is there anything else? I know you guys already touched on some of the things you guys are doing. Is there anything else, or move on to the next question? we've covered it.
Just well, shortly, if I may.
Yep.
I mean, it's just you can't, it's such a big scale what happened. It's not really, but it's just everyone doing a little bit, right? What helps. And in our case, for example, Spain has been hit pretty hard. The situation at hospitals was quite crazy. So we just tried to, like, wherever we could, we send, like, coffee equipment and coffee and freshly roasted coffee to different hospitals, which a lot of doctors and nurses wrote back and appreciated, helped them through the day. And we also created a pack, an online sales, 2 coffees for 19 euros, and off that it was we called it like pack de sanidad in Spanish, like for our health system here in Spain. Off that double pack of 2 coffees, we donated 4 euros to our health system here in Spain. So people actually, responded to that. In our case, it was similar to, I don't know who mentioned, we did about 10 or 12 times the amount on web sales or online sales, which we usually do. Wow. So we just kind of, tried to, with the weapons or the tools we had, just kind of, did as far as we felt we could do, help out emotionally and with the product we're working with.
Yeah, no, that's great. I wanted to mention, I love your hat, by the way. It's the origin, we the origin. It's like the brother to we the origin. But yeah, no, it's great to hear, like, the first responders, like kind of the people on the front lines. I've seen a lot of roasters, a lot of cafes, kind of running campaigns to really say thank you and providing benefits to them, free coffee or whatever it is. So hats off to everyone who's able to do that. I mean, these guys are working hard, and without them, we'd be much worse off. They're putting themselves at risk. So thanks, guys. Anything else that we've missed? I know we've kind of covered a lot of stuff, which is exciting. You guys are pretty innovative, that's for sure. All right. So I think, got a couple more questions to go. Sorry, Cole, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I was going to throw in a quick comment. I think it's interesting. Our panel, at least from what I've established, everybody has numerous cafe locations. And I think it's interesting. With our second entity, Forward Coffee, and bringing in green coffee and starting to work with some small scale guys here in Canada, a lot of the guys that don't have retail presence are actually just doing record numbers for their businesses. This is a moment that is, if you were just an e-commerce platform, we're the 5 of us that are sharing with you right now, we're all struggling because we're shut down on retail. We had to let our teams go. We have to pivot our business altogether. We're into different avenues altogether, like Blake was saying with sanitizer, which is that's super amazing. I think that the level of entrepreneurship and the ability that people are able to change. But I think for some roasters, this is the moment for them to get ahead of the small guy, big guy, and jump into a new bracket and sort of position themselves in a spot in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And I come from a tech background, so I've been speaking with a lot of kind of the tech coffee companies out there that are like highly focused online and on tech, and they're seeing an uptick, and they're getting investors reaching out because their numbers are really taking off because of changing consumer behavior. So there's a lot of interest in that space, especially from like the VCs and the tech folks.
Something else we did that we thought was kind of fun and interesting. We were gearing up for to be at MICE and to be in World of Coffee in Poland, and we have a bunch of super high-end coffees, competition coffees, 5, 10, 20 kilos of these amazing lots that are not priced for mere mortal coffee drinkers, but we launched them on our menu. We put up a little reserved menu and put them in 100-gram bags, so they're at least a price point that you can kind of chew off, $10 to $40 Canadian, and that has gone exceptionally well, to the point that I actually think that will be a significant percentage of our business going forward. and it's gonna kind of play into and pad that high-end coffee market, which I think other than a few players globally, it doesn't really exist at the moment. So that's really exciting for me. I'm sitting here roasting some Panama Geisha lots at the moment, and you know, hoping to bring in more of this stuff. So that's a pivot that we've kind of taken, something we had access to but never known how to actually market. We threw it out there because of COVID, and it's stuck and has been a success.
It's awesome. I'm going to be ordering some of those geishas from you for sure.
Sweet. That's most
that's
of
one
why
my
I said it. Most of why I said it, hoping you'd bring some in.
Awesome. That's cool. So look, we've had a lot of producers, a lot of farmers here today. What do you want them to know about you and your coffee communities right now? You know, a lot of the times it's like broken telephone. They'll only hear about what's happening with you through intermediaries. So, you know, really quickly, I'd like to hear from everyone. You know, can we start with, we haven't heard from Marty in a while. So Marty, you know, what do you want farmers and producers to know?
So yeah, in where we are, we're at origin, so we're working with producers every day, and China's a little bit different than I think a lot of producing countries in that it's also a major consuming area. Obviously, per capita, it's not a big consumption, but there's a lot of capitas here. So even with only with about 4 or 5 cups a year, it's still a fairly formidable volume. So, so the producers that live near us, they've actually been having a great year because China's come back online pretty quickly, but a lot of other coffees are having a hard time getting out of port. People that weren't Chinese roasters that weren't buying Chinese coffee previously are buying some now, just to make up for that month or two of delay in Latin and African coffees getting here. So prices have been high, and there's very little coffee left. Normally this time of year, people are coming and banging down our door trying to sell us coffee, and this year it's really the opposite. We've been scrambling to get enough green to make it through the rest of the year. So for the producers we work with, you know, locally, which is Chinese, Myanmar, and Lao farmers, they're doing great. They're having a better year than the last 3 years for sure. But we also have some small projects in Guatemala, and that's been a disaster. We had a contract for 15 containers that fell through because there was a Chinese roastery that's basically imploding. And so they said we could either pretend to keep the contract and then probably go bankrupt and not pay you, or we can just not pay you now. So trying to communicate that back down the chain has been challenging. So yeah, I mean, I think you're right that there's so much breakdown between consuming and producing countries most of the time, and the more communication that can go back and forth, the better. But like I said, where we are, it's not near as there's not near as big of a gap between the consuming and producing world where I am as where most of these guys are at.
Yeah, no, that's positive. We've heard a lot of doom and gloom earlier, so it's good to hear some positives. Michael, how about yourself? What would you want producers to know about what's happening with De Origin? I know you're pretty well linked with Barra Black Mountain as well, but just for the benefit of other farmers and producers, I'd love to hear from your perspective as well.
Yeah. So Barra Black Mountain, Kilito was, giving his input earlier, is in fact belongs to my father-in-law. All right. And we have a very good relationship, and I've been back and forth. So almost 10 years ago is when we set up the roastery here in Spain. And coming to your question, of course, we work with our own coffee from our plantation, but we have a constant offering of about 11 or 12 single origins. We've been noticing, of course, not in terms of volume, but in terms of type of coffees, we've shifted from from our blends, which are our wholesale coffees, mainly, or the coffees that end up in a lot of our customers' coffee shops. So we shifted from those type of coffees, from volume coffees, to a lot more to to single origins, to micro lots, which we have been selling over the internet online. So that's actually gone up for us. So we actually our micro lots, we've been selling them a lot quicker. So these are coffees, all our coffees are specialty coffees, be it for blending or as a single origin. But okay, there is a certain, let's say, quality difference in terms of maybe scalp points, if you want to say, naturally, right? So like these are coffees of whatever, 86, 87 points upwards, and these have been selling really, really good via the internet, actually quicker than before. So I mean, I think that'll actually hold on. So if we gained whatever 300% on online sales, we might go down 20% of that, but that'll actually, I have the feeling that coffee selling online in Spain is here to stay, which means that our single origins, our actually micro lots will increase in volume, as in terms of selling them, and in volume. So I hope that's positive. I would say, keep on doing the good, doing your job to all the producers. Keep on producing, specialty lots, because I think good quality coffee definitely has a future here in Spain. Definitely has. It's been noticeable. It's not that big of an online country, especially coffee not, but that hasn't increased. And I really believe I've spoken to other friends in other countries around Europe, and they had exactly the same situation. They've been selling a lot more single origins, and so I really think that's something to count on for producers, not to now go for merely volume and try to make your money back through volume, through a lot of volume, but really sticking to the quality.
Yeah, we all hope we can maintain the specialty side of the industry, right, and not resort to commodity, garbage, dirty water coffee that you get in other parts of the coffee industry. So that's good to hear. And maybe producers can reach out, and if they have questions, or if they can figure out how to de-risk that, and maybe even share the risk along the chain, and instead of experimenting on their own and then kind of losing everything. I think there's new business models and new kind of processes that we can introduce into the coffee industry to help the farmer, and then ultimately help ourselves on the consumer side. Thanks, Michael. Rodrigo, you still there? Yes.
I am here, yeah.
Yeah. What would you? I guess you are already telling them, because you're there in Colombia. Is there anything else you can share, and at least from Devoción USA's perspective, that would help people who are in a kind of a producing side of things?
Sure. Yeah. So just to explain a little bit, I'm head of content here, which means my purpose on going to farms is to create content. It's not necessarily, I'm not like a Q process or anything like that, but I do travel with the team, including Salomón Vinograd, who is our main buyer and sustainability expert. He tells me a lot of things when I go to these farms that give me kind of like insights on what he sees, because if I go once a month, he goes 4 times a month to these farms. Colombia's like unique problems make this difficult, because we're dealing with a lot of farmers. We go to their farms, they may not have electricity, they may not have running water. We're going to parts totally destroyed by 65 years of civil war, parts of central and southern Tolima, or even 4 hours outside of Bogota, like former FARC strongholds, former ELN strongholds. so the unique set of problems is that everything is very artisanal here. There's not great business models a lot of times, or people see coffee as like a third or fourth priority sometimes, or you know, they won't do a lot of processes that would help them, simple processes or types of fertilization or you know, broca traps to prevent, you know, pest infestation. There's very simple things that could be done that they're not doing. So if I were to say, like, what I want them to know is, and what we try to teach them, you know, brewing coffee on the farm is a good example. You know, making little videos to show what is, sorry, I don't know the phrase in English, but it's factor de rendimiento. It's like the defect percentage of their coffee.
Oh, okay.
Humidity levels, why their factor is what it is, what they could possibly change on the farm. They don't even sometimes know what that means or what it is. A lot of times their processes with fermentation involve, I do one thing before I go, you know, when I'm done for the day, when I wake up in the morning, I do another thing. So that could be a range of 12 to 16 hour, you know, aerobic fermentation. They don't know that though. And so it's a lot of, this just happened to be great. And so because we're not tied to any particular farm, we find these hidden gems and we try to understand what they were doing and to have them repeat their processes. And there's so many variables. We try to figure out why this turned out so well. And we're consistently we give cupping scores for free to all farmers who send samples to us. So that allows them to say, oh, our humidity is too high, or you know, this one turned out well because that's the batch where we did X, Y, Z. So that feedback is super important for them. And a big thing, one of the biggest things for us in terms of our sustainability program is getting people to have their children want to stay in the farms and not move to Bogota, Medellin, or other places where, you know, the Colombian urbanization, you know, the agricultural sector in 2012 fell to 6% of the Colombian economy. You know, it used to be a majority. So people really are pivoting away from agriculture and I think it's because they don't see the value. I think what we need to transmit to them is that the specialty market is really a good future. There's a lot of potential there for them. If they're able to repeat their processes, if they're able to understand what a red honey or a natural is, if they can narrow down the scope of what they're doing and do it really well and be known for a flavor profile, they can make a really great return on investment and not just be struggling to break even with FNC based prices.
Yeah, I think what you're saying, you know, the education on, you know, the process that they're doing, there's so many parameters that go into coffee production. I mean, if you just record those different parameters and then see what the output's like, and then, you know, like, hey, if I tweak one thing, let's try that next, and then see if that improves or has an impact. And just kind of some of these basic things would really help. And, you know, people like yourself and Devoción are doing a good job of that. And we got to figure out, how can we scale this up? Like, you know, you can work with one farmer or two farmers or 10 or 20, but how do you reach the 25 million around the world? And, you know, how can we, you know, in line with some of the things that were said earlier, right? How do you use technology and in a way that, you know, a farmer can just take it and start getting value from it? So I think a lot of opportunity. We just got to figure out, you know, the best way to get it out to them.
And have them just trust you when you tell them about it.
Exactly. Yeah, like, screw you, get lost. Who are you? So quick time check. I know we were running a little bit late. Does anyone have to go in the next few minutes? You know, try to wrap up soon, but it seems like there's a lot of value. We're also going to be recording this and slicing it up and sharing it. So does anyone have to go in the next 5-10 minutes, or can we take 10 minutes and kind of wrap up? If you have to go, that's fine as well. Everyone's good? All right. So Cole, what do you want producers to know?
That's a great question. I don't know. I think right now, be patient, keep with the relationships you have, and work with them as much as you can. If that requires changing the way the system used to work, like maybe it's not cash up front for that container before it hits the water. Maybe maybe you can offer some sort of terms and break it down over the course of 6 months or whatever the roaster needs to consume that coffee. A couple of guys that I work with, sorry, I'm pulling the coffee out of my kawa at the moment, so that's a loud noise in the background. A couple of guys I work with have offered coffee on consignments. I had some pre-bookings from earlier in the season, and they had people walk away from other lots. So I see this as an opportunity, not as a time to sit back and fall flat. I think in a crisis like this, there are people that will rise to the occasion, and I think in Canada there's lots of those. So I don't want to keep coffee from moving to Canada, and my issue though is, just like everybody else, I don't have the cash to just throw it at you and get that coffee on the water or moving in any way possible. So I think be patient, be creative, work with the relationships that you have, or seek them out. Now is a time more than ever where we can just help each other out. That's
it's a challenge, because if your wholesale customers, your retail, everyone's kind of spending less money, then obviously you can't take on the risk and still kind of pay the same amounts that you're paying to buy coffee. So that just kind of goes up the chain, right? But having those direct relationships,
I want to challenge you on that. I think we need to pay the same amounts. I don't think now is a time to ask for discounts. I think now is a time to keep true to what we have paid in the past and honor that. I think creative solutions to affording to be able to pay the same prices is what we need. But I don't think we need to discount, because then, my issue here, I'm just passing along to the guys that Rodrigo is going and visiting, and passing along to Queen P in Rwanda. And, it's not their issue. It's all of our issue. We all got to stay true, and we got to honor our product for what we believe it's worth. And I don't think we want to discount that like the big box players are right now in the coffee world. And I think if we do start to ask for discounts, we're just going to cheat ourselves and cheat the community, and we're not going to continue to grow. We're going to get lost in the conventional world, and it's at least not where I want to play.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of one of the reasons for bringing the Jump conference and kind of bringing everyone together, is to just get this out in the open, right? There's people that are treating this in kind of a dirty way, and hey, we're not getting paid, so we're not going to pay you. And I mean, there's a lot of dirty practices, but we wanted to kind of share how everyone here is dealing with it, especially on the consumer side, because you guys are still, running your businesses. You may have had a reduction of volume, and you guys have to figure out how to maintain your business and keep running it. So I think what's come out of this is, one, we understand a lot more of what the farmer and the roasters are going through, and that helps us to better work with them and understand their issues, and just kind of have that direct relationship with the farmer to understand how can we really help you. Finally, Blake, do you want to share something with the producers and farmers? You're still there? Okay, I think we lost Blake. Okay, no worries. So the last question, and this is, we've talked about a lot of doom and gloom, and hopefully this is a positive way to end Jump, is if there was a magic solution other than a vaccine for COVID, what would that solution be? And, be as out there and as creative as you can be with no restrictions. So who would like to tackle that first?
When you say if there was a solution, what exactly are we solving?
Yeah, so this reduction of coffee shops, being able to have customers coming in, foot traffic, reduction of revenues. Unfortunately, a lot of that being passed down the chain in a lot of cases. How can we solve this? How can we come together, and what can we do?
My short and fast answer would be keep doing what you're doing. It's going to come back to normal at some point. In Calgary, we just hit phase 1. We have 50% capacity in businesses here. I've got a friend who's a chef at a couple of restaurants, and on Thursday, he was lined up from 1 p.m. all the way till close. He did 300% the revenue he did the same day last year. And, you know, that's a Thursday. It was a rainy Thursday. I don't know what he's done today or on Friday, but it's going to come back, and it's going to come back so fast that we aren't anticipating it. And I think less so of a solution is we just need to be geared up and ready for the resurgence to happen. People want out. People want to be sitting on a patio. They want a cold beer. They want a coffee. They're tired of making it. They learned about it. They did it at home. They made sourdough. You know, now we gotta go back to bakeries and cafes and restaurants, and I think we just have to be prepared. Is my personal opinion.
Good point. It's like you're running the 100-meter dash in the Olympics. As soon as that trigger is pulled, everyone's going to sprint like Usain Bolt, and everyone's going to want to get out and do the things they love. That's for sure. So a lot of people are not going to be ready to handle that. So I like what you said. That's a great perspective. Thanks, Cole. Anyone else want to add to it?
I kind of agree with Cole. We're noticing it already. Now on Monday, we can actually open up our coffee shops indoors as well, not only on the terrace. We've been noticing that. Yeah. We've been noticing it already. Our terraces are full. The people are standing in line as well. And we just need to keep on, innovating. In the gastro business, hygiene always was important, and I think now it's more important. So that's kind of maybe, wake up call to not relax on hygiene. It's something you need to be on top. We've always made a point of being that type of business that people really can trust. But there's always things to improve in that sense as well. And I also believe people are, want to get out, want to come back. Coffee is a social thing. It's not only about, coffee. We know a lot of our customers by their names. They know us by our names. Customers wanted to hug us when when we opened up back the terrace, which we couldn't because of the situation. So that was nice to see. And then again, I believe in coffee. Coffee has been drunk even during war times, like for soldiers, and it's a product that we're actually quite lucky to be in. It's a product that people, need, if you want to use that word. So I believe in coffee. It'll come back, and just let's keep on doing what we've been doing as Cole has been saying.
Yeah, I totally agree with Michael as well. Sorry to interrupt the Abbas. And also, a big, huge thing that we've learned here is community and people just slowing down. What COVID's done to us in Australia is really kind of gone, okay, we need to slow down. We need to look at the things that are important in terms of what people's values are, community, helping each other out. And when our cafes open, like tomorrow here in Australia, down in Melbourne at St. Ali HQ, the guys are going to get pumped, and it's going to be awesome. We've got tunes cranking, Sal's going to be there front and center, but just embrace people. And also, before it was almost like there was an energy of just everything was so fast paced. There were also a lot of cafe operators who were coming into the business and weren't producing a product that you could pretty much be proud of, or weren't doing coffee justice. And I think what we'll see now is a lot more operators who have survived really look at themselves and go, okay, cool, we don't want to go too crazy with expanding our business, but we want to make sure we have the best cut that we can give to people, because that's really important. And like Michael said, coffee brings people together. Like people are just hanging out to go and have a coffee.
Yeah, for sure. We're on a live stream at 5 a.m. for you, so coffee definitely brings us together. That's
I'm
for
looking
sure.
at my clock, wondering what cafes around me open. Hopefully my 2-year-old son doesn't wake up.
Yeah. That's awesome. But I like what you're saying. You know, focus on the quality, right? Don't let that slip. You know, remain sustainable as a business in terms of maintaining your customer relationships. Focus on that quality for sure. Anything you want to add? I think Rodrigo and Marty. Anything you guys want to add before we kind of close off?
Sure. I think for businesses, we need to take advantage of it's a well documented phenomenon called pent up demand. You know, obviously after a crisis or a crash, usually there's pent up demand, and we have to be ready with innovation, with new products. You know, innovating, like trend setting. We don't have to become complacent just because COVID ended. This sort of pivoting and innovation that we're doing might have positive repercussions and reverberations around the industry. We need to take advantage of this time of increased empathy in the consumer, you know, in this stage of new normal that we're in, to shine light on origin processes. Obviously I've been talking so much about origin on the marketing panel, and I'm sorry for that, but it's because I think we need to focus a lot on what's going on farms. You know, somewhere around, I've been told by, you know, experts, like, you know, around 70 to 80, 85% of the work of coffee is done on the farm itself. And that includes, I mean, I'm talking everything from germination to drying and storing, everything in between, keeping track of the farm and everything that entails. That's like, let's just say it's 80% of the work on the farm. Farmers get 10% here, at least get 10% of the profit. That has to change. Are the consumers on the other side of the world, you know, the ones who have the money and buy the coffee, have to have more empathy, or at least know that these problems exist. I think there needs to be more innovation in coffee products. I think, you know, if you think of coffee similar to the way you think of wine, wine has a huge advantage. You open the bottle and you start drinking it. You know, there's definitely some nuances there, and what kind of glass you use and the aeration and etc. But coffee, you open up a bag of coffee and you're a long way away from drinking a good cup of coffee. You know, like, and especially if the coffee's not ground yet, then you have how are you going to grind it? How are you going to prepare it? What method are you going to use? You know, what variables are you going to change? Which ones are you going to keep the same? So, you know, if there was more innovation within coffee, like making products from the cherry itself, or the mucilage, or you know, fermentation. There's so many ways things could go, and I've seen really cool stuff and innovating in the product sense. And as far as farmers, I think if there's some way to guarantee that their coffee could be bought at a fair price and not just at a break-even price, at a good price, and you know, if that means that their quality has to be higher than helping them raise the quality, whatever, that is essential for them and for the future of Colombian you know, coffee production. And we have to be aware of and support associations and cooperative. And I think a big key thing is private buyers buying directly from farmers. I think that's huge.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And what you were saying about kind of ready to drink and other forms of you know, coffee, I think sometimes there's such a big leap from commodity to specialty that you know, the average consumer is just like, I don't even know how to use a, you know, Chemex. Like, I drink a coffee brewed by Cole, you know, over a coffee brewed by myself any day, because a lot of the coffee that I brew sometimes just doesn't turn out great. So for the average person who's just getting started, there is a big barrier, that's for sure. So yeah, I mean, investigating into how we can create a market demand for other products, right? Cold brew and whatever else we can come up with. Did we miss anyone? I think Marty, do you have anything to add? No. Okay, maybe Marty's gone. It's also late for him as well. I think it's 4 a.m. in China, almost 3 or 4 a.m. Alrighty, guys. This was awesome. We've been going for 3.5 hours. I don't know how many coffees you've had. I think I've gone through about 2 cups, but conversation was great. You know, we started with great state of the industry from Karthik, and you know how they're trying to support small farmers, and then Rick gave us that bird's eye view, that macroeconomic kind of moment in time, and how we got here, which was super helpful as well. And you know, the panels, the first one, especially from the producer side, shared a lot of the challenges, and then moving to the consumer side. So we've gotten a huge like 360 degree view of the coffee industry. And I think, you know, right now having everyone at the same table today just kind of shows that, look, we're all in this for the same reason. We love the coffee industry. We see that it's a resilient, magical crop, and you know, we want to do what we can to come together and help other people along the chain so that we can together strengthen the coffee industry. So I think this is a really good point in time where we can kick off this conversation. I hope a lot of connections were made today, and I really hope that we can continue this conversation. So at We the Origin, we're planning to have a lot more of these type of conferences and events, knowing that more business now will be done online, keeping in mind, even though we may be over COVID now, there could be future issues. There could be other viruses that pop up, in the future. There could be bioterrorism. Other catastrophes can happen. How can we de-risk coffee in the long term, over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years? And again, I think a lot of that is now dictated by the consumer behavior, adopting new technologies and new channels. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us, and let's continue this conversation. Thank you, everyone, Rodrigo, Cole, Blake, Marty, for your insights, and everyone who came earlier, from Karthik, Rick, and Damien, as well as Perpetue, Kilito, Edgar, and also our tech team, Tobias and Misha, for kind of helping us at the beginning. We had some tech issues. We never did this before, but we were able to stream this out across the web. So thanks everyone who kind of helped make this happen today, and look forward to continuing the conversation. Take care, guys.
Thanks so much.
See you guys.
Thanks, Abbas.
Stay
Thanks
safe.
for putting this together.